Hello, it's Ruth Marie Hamilton. I'm going to be reading to you today from my mum's book, The Britwhistles Win a Prize. Let us begin. Nellie brushed the long fur of her fluffy white cat.
One more week, Snowball, and we will have another trophy for the china cabinet. You're sure to win best cat of the show again.
A loud meow coming from over the fence caught her attention. Stiffening, she put the brush down and went over to the window. Snowball had also heard the meow. He stalked across the kitchen floor as Nellie picked up her binoculars.
I hope that weird couple next door doesn't have a cat, she muttered as she tweaked the bottom of the curtain up and gazed over the fence. What she saw made her suck in her breath sharply, for not more than a few yards away was the most enormous cat she had ever seen, marking out his territory. That's a huge brute, she exclaimed. I don't like the look of him. Stay away from that big orange beast, my precious.
Nellie turned her head to look at Snowball, but he had disappeared.
Snowball, here, pos, she called
as she searched through the house. A gust of wind blew and a door banged. Nellie's head whipped around and her hand flew to her mouth when she saw that the back door had blown open.
Snowball, here, pos, she called frantically, running towards the door.
She was just in time to hear a dreadful rumpus of spitting and snarling and yowling, and minutes later Snowball streaked into the house and hid behind the couch. It took half a tin of fish to coax him into the open, but as soon as Nellie saw him up close, all her hopes for winning a trophy were dashed. She picked up her howling cat and, quivering with anger, marched down to the Britwhistles' front path and onto the veranda. Holding the cat under one arm, she jangled the chain of the brass bell by the door. Myrtle, opening the door, saw a thin woman wearing a striped rugby shirt confronting her. Hello, what can I do for you? She asked, taking a step backwards. Nellie's eyes flew open, and she gazed at the top of Myrtle's head. Myrtle, suddenly remembering the antlers, dragged them off and threw them into a nearby chair. What's the trouble? She said, smoothing her hair.
This is the trouble, spat Nellie, sticking out her chin. Your cat did this.
She turned her cat around and showed Myrtle the large bald patch on her side. Myrtle's face crumpled in dismay. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. We will pay the vet's bill.
I don't need a vet. It's not that bad. It's a miracle I need. The cat show is next week and I can't end him looking like this.
Myrtle opened the front door wide and smiled nervously. I'm Myrtle, and I've been wanting to meet you. Come in and have a cup of tea. My husband Alfred is a scientist and an inventor. He might be able to make a fur-growing potion. Nellie's chin dropped and her voice became less aggressive.
Oh, Nellie, this is my cat Snowball, she said, as she followed Myrtle through the front door into the cosy kitchen behind.
Myrtle slid the kettle on the back of the stove to a spot over the firebox. Take a seat, she said, pulling a chair out from the kitchen table. I'll get my husband. As Nellie sat down, Myrtle opened the back door and bashed a gong mounted on the wall outside the door. He'll be here in a minute. He's in his workshop, she said, coming inside again and taking a cake out of the oven. Do you like your tea weak or strong, Nellie?
Strong.
Alfred had arrived by the time the tea was made and the cake cut. He strode into the room looking happy because he smelt chocolate cake. When he saw Nellie, he halted and his eyes flew open in surprise. This is Nellie, our neighbour, said Myrtle. She shot him a be nice look. Marmaduke and Snowball had a fight.
Did Marmaduke win?
Said Alfred with the air of a coach inquiring after his prize fighter. Myrtle gave him a sharp nudge as Nellie, scowling, showed Alfred the big bald patch.
Your cat is a bully and a menace.
Alfred hid his pride in Marmaduke's handiwork by coughing into his elbow. Alfred, dear, Myrtle plucked at his sleeve to get his attention. As you're so clever, perhaps you can invent something to fix the problem. Alfred stopped coughing and scratched his head. Then he took a measuring tape and a notebook from his back pocket. Let me have a closer look at bald spot, he said, taking a pencil out from behind his ear. Nellie stretched the cat around once more, and Alfred, his face straight and serious, measured the mangy part several times. Then he rubbed the white fur between his fingers and wrote numbers down in his notebook. Myrtle, leaning over his shoulder, felt hopeful, and Nellie, noticing Myrtle's faith in her husband, started to think the cat show was not impossible after all. When Alfred had had enough information, he wound up the tape measure and put the pencil back behind his ear. Myrtle bit her fingernails and looked at him anxiously. "Can you do something, Alfred?" "I think so," said Alfred, staring hard at the numbers on his page. "I won't be long." With that, he turned on his heel, but instead of marching out to his workshop, as his wife had expected, he strode through to the front room and from there into the bedroom. Myrtle's face relaxed as she turned to Nellie. "I know he can fix Snowball. My husband is a very clever man. Would you like another slice of cake, Nellie, while he concocts something?" Nellie nodded and passed her empty plate to Myrtle. While they waited for Alfred to produce a miracle, Myrtle and Nellie got to know each other a little. Although the introduction had started badly, things improved as the visit went on. Nellie got to satisfy her curiosity about the house, and Myrtle learned much about the town and the people because Nellie was a gossip. "If you want anything, go to Molly's Emporium," she said, taking a sip of tea. "She sells everything, although she has far too much silly stuff for children because she has 10 of her own." "10?" said Myrtle faintly. "Yeah, 7 boys and 3 girls, and the boys are right brats, always playing pranks." Nellie pointed at the big wood stove under the mantelpiece. "When are you going to get a new stove?" "Oh, I'm not. Alfred and I want to live off the grid." "What does that mean?" Nellie stroked Snowball absent-mindedly as she spoke. "We don't want to use electricity," said Myrtle. Nellie's hand stopped at the end of a stroke and hung suspended in the air. "Not use electricity. Everyone uses electricity. Alfred wants to use alternative energy." Nellie's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "You're not going to use some newfangled rays, are you? I don't want them linking over to my place and giving me cancer." "No, nothing like that. Just a windmill, a generator, and of course the wood stove." Nellie sniffed and resumed stroking Snowball. "Each to their own. I suppose he will join the men's shed that meets at Ron Cathcart's on Thursdays. They're into that sort of stuff, or rather they say they are." Nellie gave another sniff. "But if you ask me, I think they go because Ron's wife is such a marvellous cook. She runs the Weight Watchers Club." Nellie eyed Myrtle's waistline. "I can give you her phone number if you want to join. They're not picky about members. If you're fat, you're invited." Does Molly sell fabric?" asked Myrtle, wincing at the sharp words. "Oh, yeah, she's got oodles of the stuff. What do you want that for?" "I've decided to take up patchwork quilting," said Myrtle. Nellie looked at Myrtle as if she couldn't have heard correctly. "Why would you bother cutting fabric into little squares only to sew them all back together again?" "Because I want to make something special." "Now, you're mad to do it, but if that's the case, the Patchwork Club meets at Mrs. Grundy's place every Wednesday." Nellie sniffed. "They might accept you, it all depends on Mrs. Grundy, but don't wear anything strange." She glanced around the kitchen and through the door to the antlers in the other room. "And watch out for Edna." Myrtle squirmed uncomfortably. "She used to be in charge of—" Alfred strode into the room, cutting Nellie's speech short. Both women looked at him expectantly. Myrtle, looking at her husband's face, beamed. "You did invent something. What is it? I can see you're hiding something behind your back." "I certainly did." With that, Alfred whisked his hand out with a flourish. A small circle of brown fur on a loop of wide elastic dangled from his fingers. Myrtle's face crumpled into dismay. "Oh, Alfred, you can do better than that. I expected you to make some kind of fur-growing ointment." Alfred's eyebrows jutted out and he scowled. "It's the best I can do without my lab fully set up. This will work. The band wraps around the cat's stomach and holds the fur in place." Nellie, who had been silent with disappointment, suddenly found her voice. "That dreadful thing will not fool the judges. It's not even white or real. It looks like brown rabbit fur." "Brown rabbit!" Myrtle snatched the patch from Alfred's hand and peered at it suspiciously. "Just where did you get this fur, Alfred?" Alfred looked uncomfortable and gave a hollow cough. "From the closet." "Alfred, did you use my good Sunday coat?" The room suddenly felt chilly to Alfred as 2 hostile women glared at him. He ran his finger around the inside of his shirt collar, might have. "Alfred Henry Britwhistle." "Well, of all the nerve," said Nellie, hitching Snowball under her arm and standing up.
You will hear from my lawyer about this, Alfred Britwhistle." With that, she stomped out of the house, slamming the door behind her. Myrtle, following closely behind, veered off into the bedroom and opened the door of the big wooden closet in the room's corner. She fished about inside it and pulled out a coat with a large hole in it. "Oh, Alfred," she said, dismayed, "right in the middle of the front. You could have at least taken it from the middle. You could have at least taken it closer to the hem, as I might have been able to salvage it if you had." Alfred's shoulders drooped and he looked downcast for a moment. "Sorry, Myrtle, I wasn't thinking." He plopped his invention on top of his bald head and slipped the elastic under his chin. It sat there like a tiny hat as he absent-mindedly plucked the elastic strap with his finger. It made a pleasing thwang as it hit his skin. A slow smile spread over his face as he plucked the elastic to the rhythm of an old nursery rhyme. Pussycat, where have you been?" he chanted. "I've been to London to visit the Queen." "Stop that, you silly man." Myrtle's voice was grim and she spoke through thin lips. But Alfred, who knew his wife well, saw the corners of her mouth turn up just the tiniest bit. So instead of stopping, he said with a twinkle in his eye, "Listen to this, Myrtle Turtle. I've made up a good one. Pussycat, why aren't you clean? I've been in a fight. I'm not fit to be seen." And now Myrtle's mouth really did curl up, and she even laughed, although she pretended it was a snort. "Do you really think we will get a letter from her lawyer?" she said, putting her coat in the furthest corner of the wardrobe. Underneath all his playfulness, Alfred was a shrewd judge of character. "No, that type is all bluff. She probably doesn't even know a lawyer." "I hope you're right," said Myrtle with a sigh, as she shut the door and turned the little key in the lock. And that is all for today. Goodbye.